The two miners entering the race was crazy. I mean, they can't even transform, Thesara said as the pair walked down the path toward Iacon. They did a great job improvising, though. I love the spirit of doing something so bold, Cascade replied. All the buzz surrounding the two miners that had entered the race had created an atmosphere of motivation and curiosity. Miners were always limited because they were born without transformation cogs, but the pair had entered the race and done very well even without the ability to transform. You know, if miners that can't transform can do well in the race and nearly win, Cascade turned over to Thesara with a mischievous look in her eye, then I'll bet a couple of future doctors could enter and win. Thesara shook her head. It's so dangerous, Cascade. I mean, when we went to the seminar the day after the race, the hospital was filled with racers. Some of them couldn't even remember what had happened. Cascade rolled her eyes. Come on, you gotta live a little. Cascade struck Thesara in the arm. Okay, we'll try a little adventure first. Let me think about it. Gotta train you up for the race one thrill at a time. Thesara just shook her head in reply. Well, before you know it, we'll be accepted into the Iacon Physicians Academy, and we won't even have time for thrills, Thesara said as they walked on. The pair had worked hard to prepare for the competitive process of applying to become physicians. It was all Thesara had ever wanted to do, and was looking forward to finally beginning her training. They approached the towering structure of the Iacon Physicians Academy. Its architecture differed from the racing arena, less spectacle, more prominence. White gold alloy walls rose in smooth curves toward the vaulted ceiling that seemed to glow with ambient light. The main hall doors opened soundlessly. There was a line already formed of other physician candidates. They had all already put in the necessary work and preparation. Now they would enter their application to be reviewed for worthiness. Thesara and Cascade entered the ancient hall and found towering figures etched into the stone walls. The primes of old lined the entryway. Imagine studying here, Cascade whispered. They entered the queue and continued taking the historic hall in. Looking around, Thesara had a strange feeling. It was like the prime statues had an almost ominous look. There were some dark channels surrounding them, and their eyes had a sort of sunken appearance contrasting the glowing wall. It must be a trick of the light, she thought to herself. Above them was a screen with information from all the local hospitals and the academy. It showed new advancements and new technologies. As they looked around, Thesara glanced toward it and read, Dean of Surgical Advancement, Chief Medical Officer, Ratchet, below a photo of a Cybertronian. Cascade must have read it as well because she said, Ratchet trained half the physicians on Cybertron and refused political appointments twice, Thesara replied excitedly. She could feel a surge of excitement in her chest. She was really here, in the Iacon Physicians Academy. She couldn't help but smile as she looked around. The bot in front of them turned to introduce himself. Hello, I'm Wigwag. So, gonna be doctors too, huh? Wigwag said excitedly. We hope to be. I'm Thesara, she replied, smiling. Hope to be. What she means is, we will be, Cascade said confidently. I'm Cascade. Thesara, huh? Never heard of a name like that, Wigwag said thoughtfully. Yeah, we're brainstorming some other options, Thesara replied, rubbing the back of her neck. We're thinking of upgrading it. Cascade looked around at all the primes. I mean, what we do in life all depends on our name, right? We need something powerful, Cascade said, thinking. I was thinking maybe something that reflects my duties as a physician, to save lives, you know, Thesara said. Yeah, that would be good. Maybe something like defib or lifeline or suture if you want to specialize in surgery, Wigwag replied, brainstorming. Thesara looked at him thoughtfully, considering the options. I was thinking you should be named after one of the old knights, maybe Iron Dawn or Storm Rain, Cascade said excitedly. Just the knights? Why not name me after the primes? Thesara replied sarcastically. Even better, Cascade said. They laughed. Wigwag, what do you want to specialize in? Thesara asked him. He thought for a moment. Well, I'm not sure yet. I'm not big on surgery. I was thinking maybe in the wards. I don't like the stressful positions much, Wigwag said. Yeah, I agree. I'm thinking infectious disease, Thesara replied. Then she leaned in and added, definitely not a thrill seeker like some bots. She pointed meaningfully at Cascade. We're up next! Cascade exclaimed excitedly. At the head of the queue, the pair were scanned and their application details emerged. On a holographic image between the pair and the recruiters before them, there was a list of all the qualifications and recommendations. Holding their breath, the pair waited patiently. Then, at the same time, both of the recruiters said, accepted. They both stood up very straight all of a sudden, as if they'd just prevented themselves from jumping up and down in front of the recruiters. Once they passed back through the great doors, however, they were able to do so. Cascade and Thesara jumped up and down and hugged outside the hall, realizing that their shared dream of becoming physicians would soon be realized. Okay. Cascade took a deep breath, trying to calm some of the excitement. Now, we need to look for a small thrill to get you trained up for the Iacon 5000. It can be our celebration. Cascade smiled broadly. Thesara looked at Cascade, wondering if she was serious. Or we could just go to the Energon Cafe and drinks are on me, Thesara replied. Come on, we need to celebrate. We always go to the Energon Cafes. This time we need to do something exhilarating. Cascade was now pulling Thesara by the upper arm excitedly. Apprehensive, Thesara didn't know what to say. She didn't want to upset Cascade, but she wasn't much for thrills or unnecessary risks. What if they got hurt? They were going to be physicians now. They needed to think about consequences. Would their patients even respect them, knowing they did dangerous things on their time off? But Thesara didn't like to argue with her best friend. It was nice to see Cascade so excited. Maybe a small thrill would be okay. Just this once. Just then, a deafening sound filled the air, and the pair instinctively crouched. Looking up, they saw a train had crashed into Sentinel Prime's tower. There was debris falling all around the tower, and they could see some sort of battle in the air. Oh no, Thesara said. Sentinel's tower, Cascade added. Still in shock, they watched the debris fall. Suddenly, Cascade began running. Come on, Thesara, we have to help! Thesara looked from Cascade to the battle to the falling debris. There were surely people injured. Thesara took a breath to herself and closed her eyes, placing the fear she felt in a little box temporarily, then followed Cascade apprehensively. The sound of bots crying out filled the air, and the pair disappeared into the dust. Today, Thesara was taking the first shift in triage. She rushed from her quarters to the Iacon Physicians Academy. With a great war raging, there were piles of debris littering the streets, and people hiding inside structures. The atmosphere couldn't be more different than the day that she and Cascade had applied to the academy. Now it was so normal that there was debris on the road. It felt so natural that the streets be vacant of people. There was only the sound of vehicles, no laughter, no conversation, just people hurriedly getting to where they needed to be. Thesara arrived in the Great Hall. After Orion Pax became Optimus Prime, Energon began to flow once more. Thesara rushed through. Behind her, the Prime statues glowed in an Energon blue light. Their eyes looked alive with the Energon light flowing in them. The decontamination room helped physicians and apprentices not bring pathogens in from outside. She entered, and the fog surrounded her, as it usually did. Apprentice, I need you here, the triage manager shouted as she exited the hospital side of the decontamination room. Thesara followed hastily. We have a mass casualty incident. Many burn injuries and explosives damage. I need you to conduct initial triage, then I will do secondary. The triage manager handed her paint of different colors to mark the chest of each patient based on priority. Yes, sir, Thesara said, but he had already rushed away. There were patients all over the halls, and they had run out of beds. Some were sitting along the entranceway, and many were also lying on the ground. The transport is here, a clerk shouted toward her. Thesara waited by the entrance, prepared to receive them. She didn't know where they would go, but had noticed that the patients were already grouped. There were 2 rooms for the critical patients, and a hallway and another room for the delayed patients. The walking wounded were instructed to wait outside. Some had already been waiting several hours. The first patient arrived. It was a young miner. He was not conscious, but had a spark with him. She grabbed the red paint and placed a slash across his chest plate and pointed the transport crew in the direction of critical patients. Next, a patient ran up to her, holding his detached arm in his other hand. "They blew my arm off! They blew my arm off!" He was in shock and had a sort of faraway look in his eyes. She scanned him, and he was stable. He was in no immediate need of medical care. "You'll be okay. We'll take care of you." She painted a green slash across his chest and asked him to wait outside. "Wait outside? Wait outside? They blew my arm off!" He screamed at her now. "I know." Thesara was calm and measured. "We will help you. You have my word. You just have to take the most severe—" "How is getting your arm blown off not severe?" he shouted. He was now towering over her. "Sir, please, we have many patients," Thesara said. Then the transport crew with the first patient returned and grabbed him. They reassured him that the hospital would help him and escorted him outside with the other patients with a green stripe across their chests. Thesara didn't have much time to deal with her racing spark rhythm from the intimidating experience. She had an entire transport ship of triage to conduct. She proceeded. After several hours, the triage manager rotated her out, and she began to treat some of the delayed patients with a yellow stripe. These were the patients that could become critical, but were okay to wait a bit longer for treatment. Thesara had envisioned her physician life many times. She pictured taking the time to learn her patients and care for them as individuals. She wanted to build relationships with them and understand their needs personally. Never had she thought her care for patients would involve not even learning their names, and only stabilizing them in numerical order in mass. She tried not to think about it because when she did, there was a sinking feeling in her gut. There wasn't time to feel. She just had to keep going. If she didn't, more patients would die. It so happened that Cascade was to relieve her at triage today. They rapidly talked business during the transfer. Then, as though everything halted for a moment, they looked into each other's optics. The gaze they held momentarily gave them strength. Then they each nodded and continued on. After the triage shift, Thesara was sent to one of the care wards. She really loved the care wards. It was an opportunity to get to know the patients. She knew all their names, and even though it was still rushed, she tried to make the best of it. KB-52 was a young Cybertronian who had previously worked in waste management until they had learned that the waste management trains were really delivering energon to their enemies. Now, KB-52 worked in one of the archives. It had been targeted by Decepticons, and he was now critically wounded. The chief of surgery, Ratchet, had helped save KB-52's life, and now Thesara was part of the team helping him to a full recovery. "Doc," KB-52 said as she turned the corner to his room. "Hey, KB, how's my favorite trash guy doing?" she replied jokingly. "I told you, Doc, that was my old assignment," KB said, rolling his optics. "Oh." Thesara tilted her helm thoughtfully and withdrew a slim, square package from beneath her arm. "Then this must belong to someone else." KB tried to sit up a little straighter despite the stabilizers. "What's that?" Thesara turned the package over so he could read the inscription etched neatly across the surface. "To my favorite trash guy. From Doc. Almost." KB looked up at her happily and reached out for it. Thesara smiled and handed it over. He ripped the package open to find a live screen of the surface of Cybertron. "My brother is great with technology. He found an old feed from the surface and connected it to this screen. Now you can see all the colors and beauty of Cybertron's surface. One day you'll see them in person," Thesara said kindly. KB was too stunned to speak. He was taking it all in, and after a moment, he hugged the screen. Then he said, "Thank you, Thesara." Thesara smiled in reply. Then, "Apprentice, we need your help urgently." A nurse shouted down the hall. Thesara rushed out to assist. One day per week, apprentices had the day off. It was meant to allow them to recharge fully after working constant double shifts during the rest of the week. But, as Thesara had modified her recharge chamber, she had a little bit more free time. Her chamber's efficiency was 83% more than others, and that allowed her to use her day off to spend time with her twin brother. Today, Thesara agreed to meet her brother at a new Energon cafe. Despite the ongoing war, The cafes were doing well, because people wanted to escape all the chaos and pretend everything was okay for a moment. When she arrived at the building, she realized it was the very tallest in the surrounding area. She felt an uneasiness in the pit of her stomach. Looking up, the cafe itself was at the very top. Thesara looked down and shook her head. Taking the lift, she found her brother already waiting for her there. The cafe was built along the outer ring of a spire. Its walls were of a transparent alloy looking over Iacon's skyline. Aerial traffic streamed between the towers far below. Thesara hesitated at the entrance. Soundwave met her near the elevator. He was smirking slightly. "You know I have a thing about heights, Soundwave," Thesara said to him a bit moodily. Soundwave offered her his arm. "It's all right. I'm with you," he replied. She took his arm and began walking. The outer ring of the cafe was a dark flooring. Then, right in the center, was a circular section of transparent floor. They were assigned a table in the section of the cafe that was transparent. "No, Thesara began to protest, but the server had already left. She didn't want to cause trouble or complain, but she also really didn't want to be in the transparent section. "It's all right, Thesara. Take my arm," Soundwave said. Thesara looked at him apprehensively. They began to walk, but at the edge of the transparent floor, she felt the breath catch in her chest. She froze as though her feet had fused to the ground. It felt as though she was on the precipice of the building's edge. "Let's just ask for a different table, Soundwave," Thesara said. Soundwave looked at her, then at the floor. Okay, we will," he said, nodding. "Here, why don't you walk back to the entrance, and I'll find the server." Thesara looked at him appreciatively and nodded. As she walked back away from the transparent floor section, she felt her spark rhythm at an unusually high and powerful rate. She felt like she could hear it beat in her audio receptors. There was a seating area near the entrance, and Thesara clutched one of the chairs for support and tried to bring her spark rhythm back to its customary calm. Why was she so terrified of heights? It seemed to be a terrible combination, with Soundwave as her brother and Cascade as her best friend. "You okay?" Soundwave had returned. I just don't like heights," Thesara said under her breath. "I'm sorry. I wish I was brave. I don't know. I don't think I'll ever get used to it." "It's all right. I should have asked for a different seating area. I just wanted to show you the view from here. But we can see it from the regular seating area. Come, I have a booth for us," Soundwave said. "You know, maybe you can do some thrill sports with Cascade and she'll get off my back about joining her myself," Thesara said to him. "Oh yeah?" he said, smiling. "Well, what's life without a little excitement?" They sat at a booth near the edge of the building, but there was a wall separating them from the actual edge, so Thesara couldn't see to the bottom. "It is a nice view," Thesara said, taking in the holographic sun rising. It projected the image of the actual sunrise from the surface. There were several moons that could be seen as well. "I gave KB the screen you helped me with. He loved it," Thesara told Soundwave. Soundwave smiled and nodded. "How's he doing?" "He's getting much stronger. I think he'll be better before the original projections, but I don't want to sign him off yet. I worry that maybe I'm missing something." Thesara paused and looked out to the view. "Or that I'll release him and he'll be attacked again." The tone of her voice had changed slightly. It was a bit darker, and with a touch of something else. Was it anger or resentment? "We had a transport ship full of wounded come from a Decepticon attack," Thesara said. Soundwave looked at her but did not respond. "There were hundreds of patients, but the hospital was already full. I had to tell some patients to wait outside," she added. "I'm sure you did the right thing, Thesara," Soundwave said kindly. The server brought them Energon, and it sat between them for a few moments, untouched. "It's not that. I just hate that we have so many patients. I mean, there's just attack after attack. The Decepticons keep hurting civilians. They targeted another archive facility," she said. Soundwave's optics shifted slightly. It was strategic. Thesara's optics narrowed in mild shock. There were archivists inside, she replied. Soundwave nodded in understanding. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. It must take its toll on you, especially earlier in your training. Thesara looked down at the energon cubes and turned one over in her hands. Why would the Decepticons target an archive? She asked, not sure if she expected a reply. Soundwave responded readily. The archives preserve Prime's narrative. Megatron says Prime is wrong. Thesara's eyebrows furrowed. Prime's narrative? The archives simply preserve history. And why do you call him that? Prime. It was Soundwave that looked out to the view this time, contemplatively. There's a lot of different information out there. How do we know what is right, or who to trust? We all trusted Sentinel, after all. Thesara sat, looking at her brother in a mild disbelief. Was he defending the Decepticons, or was he simply trying to be objective in his evaluation of what was occurring? But Sentinel is dead. And he wasn't a real Prime. Optimus has the Matrix now. Primus gave it to him. Doesn't that mean we can trust him? Thesara said. Soundwave paused for a moment. Then he said, It means we should question all of them. Thesara looked at him quietly. While everyone's questioning everything, our people are still dying. Isn't it the people who both sides claim to be fighting for? She replied. They were civilized in their tone, but you could feel the tension growing between them. A faint vibration moved through the cafe as an aerial patrol streaked between towers. I'm not as concerned with the narratives as I am the safety of our people. Our people are losing lives and limbs. This war is threatening to destroy our planet. It won't matter who is right if we all lose, Thesara said. Soundwave's voice softened slightly. And that is precisely why systemic change is necessary. They both took Energon now and began to speak about the latest thrills Cascade was trying to coax Thesara into. On this cafe, you would almost believe the war wasn't raging. The atmosphere mimicked that from before the war, but the surrounding area was filled with crumbling structures and smoking debris. Smaller battles could be seen when looking closely. The Autobots did their best to create a safe area in the heart of the city, but it was the city's heart that the Decepticons continued to target. The holographic sunrise flickered momentarily, and the dark walls of the underground cavern could be seen for just a moment. A spark once whole, now split in two, shall fall through flame and sky blue. Torn from a twin by war's cruel hand, shall wake where ice devours the land.